Good evening. I'd like to have us re-enter into our budget discussions. Today is April 12th, 2022. We are starting our meeting at 6:07 p.m. And if no objections, we'll just jump right into our budget discussion. So, Dr. Vidala, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Very brief presentation tonight, and I know I wanted to leave plenty of time for questions. So in terms of the presentation, the first two slides are the same as last week, just reiterating our core tenets that drive our decision making. So really focusing this year on stability and sustainability, making sure that we have budget decisions that provide stability to the district over many years, and that we have a budget that is sustainable over time. So much of our focus over the last 2 years has been to build our capacity with our current staff and to support our students. So we want to make sure that we have any long-term implications of the decisions we make that we consider to ensure that they can be maintained for many years to come. So we've created a budget that we feel as though can be sustained for many years to come with the current funding that we have and the anticipated funding that we'll get from increases in grants and the Student Opportunity Act. So we talk about our vision of hope, and one of the big focuses this year has been on student and staff support. So one of the areas I know there were a number of questions about was our elementary assistant principals, the proposal. So I have a slide on that just to kind of go through with everyone. Let me just minimize this. Okay. So currently we have 8 elementary assistant principals. 4 of those assistant principals are full-time, 4 are APs with teaching responsibilities. So we may have a first grade teacher or a 4th grade teacher who also serves as the assistant principal. So some of the challenges with having assistant principals that have teaching responsibilities is that their primary focus is on their classroom of students. So that's their primary focus. They have a group of 20 students every day, and they're providing that instruction just like the typical general ed teachers. One of the challenges that creates is that they're unable to support students' needs during the day. So for example, if there is a behavioral issue that they need to attend to, they would need to leave their classroom and get coverage, and the students who are in their classroom may miss out on some instructional time if they need to tend to some student support areas. They also do have a caseload of teachers that they observe and provide feedback to, so they are limited in their ability to provide that support for teaching and learning because they're only able to do classroom observations and provide support during their preparation period. So our proposal would be to relieve them of their teaching duties and replace that with instructional leadership or instructional coach responsibilities that would replace their classroom duties. So we wouldn't be adding any assistant principals since we already have the 8 assistant principals. The budget impact for FY23 would be an additional 3 classroom teachers. That would be at the McCarthy, the Burke, and the West. So currently, we're not looking to add a classroom at the Welch because we're actually reducing the 4th and 5th grade. So that's a little bit through attrition, but the long-term impact would be 4. So our addition to the budget in this case would be to completely level fund these assistant principals, but to add teachers to be able to relieve them of their duties. So if the committee wants me to stop here, I can answer some questions. We can engage in a discussion. I'm not looking for a vote tonight on this, but just providing a little bit more information. This isn't something that we need to move forward with immediately. We have these people who are in place, but we'd be looking in the late spring, towards the end of the year, if this were approved, to be able to post for teaching jobs in those schools.
Thank you, Dr. Vidala. Any questions at this point, Mr. Huckman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Dr. Vidala. I think just one question that I have is if this goes forward, is it your expectation that the 4 assistant principals with teaching responsibilities would roll into the 4 full-time assistant principals?
Yes, we would offer that to the 4 of them, give them sort of right of first refusal. If they did not want to do that type of job and they were really tied to the classroom, we would work with them similar to what we've done in previous years, where that teacher could keep their teaching job and go into Unit A. Maintaining their seniority. We've done that before. So if they wanted to be a classroom teacher, we would honor that as well.
So if a current assistant principal with teaching responsibilities elected not to take on a full-time assistant principal position, they would go into Unit A and not stay in Unit B
Correct. That's the proposal, yes.
at the Unit A rate?
Correct.
Okay.
And similar to what we've done in the past, when an elementary assistant principal has elected to go back in, we honor the years of service and provide them with the longevity that's in the Unit A contract based on their hire date. And we worked that out with Unit A previously around this to make sure it's a smooth transition. And these would be current positions, so they wouldn't be taking anyone's job because we would be adding additional positions to Unit A, so they wouldn't be displacing anyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Any other questions on this item at this point? Okay.
And as people think of questions moving forward, this isn't something we want to rush into, so happy to, if things come up, that if people want to have questions, happy to engage in conversations about that. But I know this was an area that people had questions about. And again, in terms of next steps, we want to begin the budget review for the budget book for the vote, which will be $83,106,902. So tonight, I have a first draft of that for us to look over. All of the supporting documents are still in the binders that we have. We have a one-pager on some items that would easily flow into ESSER. Very similar to last year, many of them are the same types of items or any new positions. And then we have the updated budget book for vote. We want to continue to examine the budget details and make adjustments, recommendations, or changes as we go through. And then as we go into the later spring, proceed with posting and hiring the positions. We'll work with Unit A around the transfer process. That's the first step, is any open positions, we allow the Unit A teachers to transfer into any desirable positions, and then based on seniority, and then we would open up external positions. And then we want to make sure that we're continuing to communicate the budget and the funding sources to our stakeholders and to the community at large. So that's my brief presentation for tonight. I know that there's likely some questions, so I can get out of this presentation and answer any questions that we have from the committee.
Mr. Miko?
Great, thank you. Through the chair, Dr. Vidala, thank you for providing this and to the committee. Going back to the assistant principals moving out of the classroom and into a full-time role, I do support that. I just think with even pre-COVID, it's just so difficult to do both of those jobs, classroom teacher and be an assistant principal. I just think it just makes it much easier. And then being able to get 4 new teachers at that level that can just focus, not just focus, but focus on the kids, focus on the instruction, focus on teaching, and then have the assistant principals focus on providing support, whether it's mental health, whether it's behavioral, whether it's, in some cases, discipline. So I do support that. With that said, I support that because of also having extra eyes in a classroom. Dr. Vidala, were you able to look at our paraprofessionals and that whole topic where Mr. Olympio brought it up, and can you just give us an update on that?
Yes, so we are doing some analysis on the paraprofessionals and which programs they support. So we do have the kindergarten paraprofessionals, we have special ed paraprofessionals, and then we have some paraprofessionals that kind of support in other areas. So right now we're creating the number that we have in each school. In addition to that, so focusing really on the special ed paras, that's the majority of our paras, about 150, and then what programs they support. So I should be able to provide that. I think I do have a first brush at it. It is not a finalized document, but I can put that up as well. Give me 1 second, I'll pull it up. Okay, so this is a first look at what we have. So I just did total number of paraprofessionals, so the Brown School, and this is just in our special ed realm. So the Brown School has 29 paraprofessionals, which supports the 6 ASD co-taught classrooms and the 11 program classrooms, ASD and Milestones, as well as our inclusive settings. The Center School, which does not house any special programs, has 6 supporting K through 5. So that's a combination of grade level as well as if there's any one-on-ones. These numbers do not include the kindergarten paraprofessionals. These are just the special ed paraprofessionals. So every kindergarten classroom has a para. The Carroll has 8 serving K to 5, not in any special programs. The Welch currently has 3 paraprofessionals. The West has 14, so you'll see an increase there because they do support the Choices program. So that supports our inclusive grades K through 5 plus the Choices program. The Burke has 5, which supports the co-taught classrooms in inclusive K to 5. The South School has 3, which is a similar model to the Welch, just supporting the general ed classrooms across the board. Higgins has 36 because all of our programs fold into the Higgins, so they have a lot of programs there. The high school overall has 27 paraprofessionals supporting grades 9 through our post-grad program. In our pre-K, I know pre-K was something that Mr. Olympio talked about. We have 22 paraprofessionals across the 8 pre-K classrooms. And then at a remote school at Peabody Prep, we have 6 paraprofessionals supporting K to 12 for any special education needs we're supporting through para. So this is a first brush. We're starting to dive a little deeper and see where there's additional need. And I do see that we would be able to fund some of that through additional grant funding that we have, whether it's ESSER or some of our special ed 240 grant. So I do anticipate being able to provide additional support. I've talked to the integrated preschool about where they would see it, especially with some of our classrooms next year we have 2 that will be going to a full day, and I think that's really an area where they want to make sure that the kids are supported. So don't have a recommendation tonight, but this is the first bit of work that we're going to do, and I do anticipate we'll be able to add to that.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Mr. Olympio?
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Vidala and your team. Very happy that you are going to address those issues with the paras. Certainly need more support. It's always nice when people reach out and they kind of tell you what's going on the ground, and it'll be nice that if we can get some extra support there. I am certainly in favor of the assistant principals. Certainly over the past few years, on numerous occasions, there's always been a struggle with covering the classroom, and just it's a tough task even pre-COVID, like Mr. Amico said. So I'm very happy to support that, and certainly look forward to what you find, what additional needs that we'll need for paras in certain specific classrooms, especially with special education and pre-K. So thank you.
And one of the things that we're teasing out right now is, what's a staffing issue and what's a budget issue. So there are areas where we have open positions that haven't been filled yet, and we're trying to fill those. So that's the committee has committed the funding for that, and we haven't been able to fill those positions. In addition to that, I want to be able to bring some recommendations forward to you around additional positions that that the integrated preschool is looking for, as well as the other schools, to make sure that we're supporting all of our students.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. Any other questions for Dr. Vidala or his team at this point? Dr. Vidala, can you maybe just go through again, I know we have more to discuss and more questions to be asked, but in terms of ultimately when we vote on the budget, can you go through again the numbers here? The budget packet in our book today in our file today had the $83 million number, but the earlier one had an $86 million. If you can just maybe just walk us through that again one more time. And
Absolutely.
ultimately, what the vote would be
What the
that would
vote would
go.
be. Yep. So, in general, we would do 3 votes. One is to vote on the salary line in the final budget. Once we tease out all of the details, I know it's still a little bit of ways of this, but that's why I'm glad that we started at the beginning of March, just so that we had ample time. So first we'll vote on the salary, the total salary, then there'll be a second motion to vote on the ordinary budget, and the final vote is on the entire budget, the total of the budget, which is $83,106,902. The total budget this year, because of the ESSER funding, will be about $3.5 million more than that, so around 86.6. And so I compare this to last year's vote. We voted on a $76.6 million budget. Overall, we had an $80 million budget, right? And then this year, we're able to get a big increase in our Chapter 70 funds. So you'll see that this is a little over $7 million, but a little over $7 million of an increase from last year of what we voted on. We received 7.5 in Chapter 70, so the increase in the voted budget is fully funded by Chapter 70. So we're not going to the city and asking for an additional allocation compared to what we got last year, and the reason for that is that we want to make sure that this is sustainable over time. So this would be, the city's allocation would be about $30.5 million less than this, which is what we got from Chapter 70. So I can pull up the old budget presentation just so you can see the how the numbers shake out. But we would be voting on this as the appropriated budget, similar to that number that we did last year. And then the additional funding would come out of ESSER, which we do believe is sustainable because of how the funding is coming forward in the next several years. So I'm going to share this document one more time. It's a nice side-by-side comparison of this year to last year. So this is, again, above the line, above this big black line in the middle of the page, is a screenshot directly from the Department of Ed, from the DESE website. This is the Chapter 70. So if we look here in the column for FY22, our foundation budget was $74 million. The city was required to give us $50.9, and we received $23.1 from Chapter 70. So our required net school spending was $74 million. The city gave an extra $2.6 last year because we were really in a hole around making sure we came back from the pandemic and making sure we had enough support. So you voted on a budget last year of $76.6 million. The work that we did to identify and connect kids to services in order to be able to increase this Chapter 70, what we've seen is we have over 500 students that are identified as low income, and so with the Student Opportunity Act, we received a great deal more money. So we received $7.5 million in additional funding. So that Chapter 70 number that's coming in from the state is now $30,686,005. So we have a little over $30.6 million and a required net school spending amount of $83.5. So we're asking for a proposed budget for the city of 83.1 to make sure this is sustainable. So the city does pay for our custodians and our maintenance, and that counts towards net school spending. So we'll meet our net school spending. We have plenty of money coming in, so we're not in danger of not meeting net school spending, but what we want to do is make sure that we're asking for a budget that is sustainable over time. So the biggest difference in what was voted, it's nearly $7 million, that's all funded by Chapter 70. So we want to make sure that we're not taxing the city too much to make sure that, it's something that we can sustain over time.
Thank you, Dr. Vidal. Any other questions? Mr. Amico?
Thank you, through Chair Dr. Vidala. So for FY23, we don't have the COLA in there yet because we're still. We do. Oh, we do have that.
We have a salary reserve line
Okay.
that is in the budget as an anticipated overall amount that will be distributed across all of our, but we did put that in, and that's in the appropriated 83.1. There is an amount of money in there for us to, at least defray that cost. So we're not looking to do what we did last year, which that was after the vote. There was an additional $1 million that had to come in after the vote. So we have put in a salary reserve, which I believe has been done every 3 years. That's sort of how it was handled in the past. So we made sure to do that
Thank you.
again.
So that was my question. The 83,106 does include the COLA.
Does include an anticipated COLA, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Olympio?
Yes, real quick, so 3.435 million, the ESSER grant
Yep.
in 2023, where's that tying into the sheet that you, or is that just,
So that was an estimate.
Okay,
When we took the things out, it was around 3.5.
Okay.
And again, we were approximating about 3.75 over the 2 years. So we're trying to stay under that, just to give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room. When I took these items out, the estimate was about 3.5. So I added the difference to health insurance.
Okay.
Just, it's about $100,000 to health insurance, because that's always been something that we
Yeah.
want to make sure we're making sure we have enough money in that
Sure.
line as well.
okay,
And again, this is just the first brush, so there's things that can slide around before we get it for the final vote. But I wanted to make sure that this number was the number
Yep.
that we had talked to the city about, that they're comfortable with.
okay, yep, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. I apologize for coming in a few minutes late. I think I caught up, there's going to be additional paras that you're looking into adding into
And
the
so I'll
district.
bring that to the next one, where we will locate them and how we will fund it.
So that would have been one of my questions about identifying areas where those are needed.
Yes.
So I have two other questions in regards to student services. In some of the, and I'll ask if you can bring this back to the next one. Some of our class sizes, I'd like you to maybe reevaluate and look at the ones that are really close to the contractual limits. Just glancing through this updated list that we have, and like at the Brown, we have, it looks like, maybe in the first grade, I'm trying to follow the grid, I'm sorry, it's small. It says 24.7 in a class.
Yes, and so that is a little deceiving, because we have, at that grade level, we have 2 sub-separate classrooms. So the overall grade level divided by the 3 general ed classrooms is at class average of 24.7. But there are students who are in sub-separate classrooms, so we have 2 of those. One has 6 and one has 8, so it's really, you reduce that number by 14. So it's not a real clean way of doing that, and I didn't want to divide it by 5 and say that we have a class size of 14. So,
Okay.
yeah, we haven't figured out a real clean way of doing that. But in general, the traditional general ed classroom size at the Brown is around 20.
Okay. So I think just where we're kind of going with additional support services and making sure that we're helping the students, on the ground first. If you could just go back and maybe look at some of the class sizes that are really close to our contractual size, and see if there's a way that maybe we can identify lowering those, adding additional staff instead, if we have this money. It's really hard now with so many kids in a class and all the different social and emotional and catching up, and if we do have that extra money and we do have that ability to do that, and you can relook at that, I'd appreciate maybe bringing that to the table next time.
Sure.
We could kind of look at those.
Yes.
And one of the other things I wanted to ask about, I know that it was brought up at another budget meeting about the school lunches. Can you just remind me, are we expecting to go back to paid lunches? And I think we were looking for a dollar amount.
Yes. Yeah, so we did look into this, and to pay for lunches for every student every day is about $4 million. And when we look at sort of what we've been doing over the past 2 years, with including the new educational stability liaison and connecting these kids, kids who are identified, we're almost at 50%. They will continue to get free lunch, and that, you saw this huge increase in our Chapter 70. My worry about just doing universal free lunch, not connecting those kids, is it may have a detrimental effect on us, because what could happen, and I'm not saying that it will, but what could happen is if we paid for lunches for everyone, they're not going to apply for free lunch, and now they're not going to get the additional services outside of school, and then we wouldn't get the additional support from Chapter 70. So I'd really like to try to tease this out a little bit more before making a recommendation about doing universal free lunch. We've seen in some of the community eligibility communities, like Boston and Springfield, some of the bigger communities, if you move to that too soon, it does have a negative effect on your overall budget and the money you get from the state. So I believe Haverhill did it when they were right at 40% and they went to be a CEP district, and it ended up costing them more in the long run because it wasn't as cost effective with the reimbursement that they were getting in. So it is something that we're very much in attune to. I think I would like to make sure that we're spending resources on connecting kids to those services so that they get the support of free lunch in the building. They get support outside through the pandemic EBT cards and the additional support that they can get there. And then overall, as a district, we capture that money for Chapter 70 so that we can make sure that we're providing them with all of the resources that we can. So I worry about just blanket paying for their free lunch here and then some consequences down the road of maybe them not getting the same support outside of school and the district not being able to have the funding to provide them with appropriate education. So we're continuing to look at it, though.
Thank you for the explanation, and I do appreciate, continuing to look at it. Maybe some thoughts. So did you say about 50% of our students would be free and reduced?
This year we'll be at 49.2, yeah.
Okay. So based on the information that you've told me, and I think we're still going to work on it, maybe something that we could look into is as this continues on, with the understanding that it may hurt us to blanket roll out free lunch for everyone, looking at that line of what we're charging, maybe for the other 50% that, don't qualify for that, to, if this is what's going to happen, make it a little bit more affordable. But I would like to continue working on it.
Yes, and I know there are some regulations around the cost of lunch, so we can look at that. Another thing, now that you're saying this, that might be an opportunity would be some sort of fund that we would be able to do for kids with unpaid lunch balances. And maybe there's some sort of scholarship fund where, we had a revolving account or something that we could help families in need if they had the big balance that was building up, and that we could access that funding to pay off those balances. I know that there are some communities that did a round of fundraising, and there were some donors that wiped out some kids' unpaid lunch balances. So in essence, it's a way of supplementing it without just doing a blanket free.
Yeah.
So I think there are some really good opportunities for us to look at this, but I think this is something that we want to, now that we'll move in, and I know Mr. Hockman and Ms. Dunn have really talked about this as well. There's going to be a need next year around kids that have to pay for lunch, and so how can we do this? I know the community and this committee is very much in favor of supporting kids and making sure that they don't, feel some sort of stigma around not being able to pay for lunch.
I'm sorry to go on. Would it still be through, I'm just thinking now a little bit more about identifying those students. Are we still going to be doing like the My School Bucks and all that stuff?
Yeah, so that will come back. Kids will have an opportunity, families will have an opportunity to put money on their My School Bucks account. So everyone will use their student ID card, and so you wouldn't know who's free or reduced. Okay. So some students would just, have a zero balance, and some students would already have a balance on it. And so we can work around. So not many kids bring cash anymore. So it's a lot of that is done through My School Bucks. But we could look at seeing if there's a way to, as a student's lunch balance grows, that's an opportunity for us to make connections and build relationships and see if we can support them.
Yeah, I'd like to definitely keep this conversation going.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Carpenter. Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just a follow-up on Mrs. Carpenter's comments. First off, I want to tell the committee members I was supposed to give you a draft of a letter to our legislative delegation and right on up to the president. And when I was preparing the letter, I had received a notice that they were going to take a vote in Congress on providing or extending the current program, which provided free school lunches to everyone. And I thought that was going to go through before today and would have made our letter moot. So I apologize. I should have just gone ahead with the letter anyway, and I will get that and circulate it to all of you. The other thing is, knowing that the application that goes home for students for free and reduced lunch. Over the years, I have always been told that it would be to our benefit if every single family filled one out, whether they were eligible or not. And we have never sent a letter home explaining that. Most people don't know it. They see that come home in the backpack and just say, well, we're not going to qualify, and they don't fill out the form. I think if people understood that filling out that form would help the entire school district be eligible for more grants and for funding, we might get a better response. It's really, really frustrating to know that we've been told that we have to send out the letter that goes with that form. Apparently, it's a letter that comes from the federal government. I don't understand why we can't attach our own letter to the top of it to explain to families, please, fill this out. I don't know on that form, I can't remember if there's a spot where you can stop. I don't know what we could do to encourage everyone to fill that out. But I do know that years ago, the city of Salem did it, and that is actually how they were able to rescue their cafeteria program and to be able to keep their school lunch program going in that district. So there has to be a way where we can attach our own letter to the front of the 2 pages that the government mandates and let the families know that we really do need their response on this. If you need to list on our letter what programs could be eligible to students, or even just give the explanation you just did, Dr. Vidal, about the fact that we need to know this so that you won't miss lunch. You won't fall through the cracks when the government shifts from program to program. I really would like to recommend that we do that this year and see what type of response we can get. I know it's more difficult at the middle and the high school levels, but I think we have to do it at all the levels. Put it in the newspapers, explain it to people, just so that, grandparents hear about it and talk to the family and say, hey, fill out that paperwork, because it is important, and no one ever understands it.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Mr. Amico?
Thank you, through the chair. And thank you, Ms. Carpenter. I agree with you on this as well, and Dr. Vidal and Ms. Dunn. It just got me thinking a little bit about how, you mentioned fundraising from private entities or from the public. And I know a lot of private schools do this, and we have a wonderful organization, Peabody Ed Foundation, does an incredible amount of raising funds and giving it back to classrooms and teachers. They're amazing. I think they just gave another, I think they just received another donation from Graphic recently. But it got me thinking, and I know there was a subcommittee meeting that Ms. Carpenter held with the city council, and a couple of city councilors had mentioned an alumni office or an alumni officer at the high school. And so I went on, I Wikipedia'd it, so I don't know if it's accurate, but some of our alum are professional wrestlers, actors, comedians, professional athletes, attorneys, judges, mayors, school committee members, and I'm sure the list goes on and on. And it just got me thinking, after listening to that meeting, why we don't have an alumni office at the high school where we can reach out to these people who are all over the country. Just in this room alone, we have successful alum. And it would be great to not only keep in touch with alum as they graduate Peabody High School, but who knows, maybe even get some donations that we can bring back into the classroom, or maybe pay off the debt of school lunches. And as far as I'm concerned, I would use a very simple balance sheet. Whatever you budget out for an alumni officer, if they can bring that back in funding or rewards from others, then it's a win-win. But I don't know. We all get our calls from our local colleges, right? Wouldn't it be great to get a call from your high school to say, hey, would you like to donate? Would you like to sponsor a team? Would you like to sponsor an organization? Would you like to pay for someone's lunch this year? I mean, we do it for baseball, Little League, and all the other organizations. I think it, something to think about here. Maybe not this year, but certainly next year. And we do have the ESSER money to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Mrs. Dunn?
Just for everyone's information, I was at the subcommittee meeting where it came up, and I mentioned how I have the paperwork that was started years ago to form an alumni association, and I pulled it back together again, and it really wasn't in any form to put on our agenda for tonight, but I actually would like to bring it forward at our next meeting. It was for a voluntary organization. It did not include any staff person, but I do have that, and actually want to bring it at the next meeting, and that's a definite, you'll have it by the next meeting.
And that is my subcommittee report. That's going to be in the school.
All right, I'll check that off. Oh, but that's great, thank you, that's great. Okay. Any other thoughts or comments or questions? Okay, in terms of our next budget meeting, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So our next regular school committee meeting is the 26th, 2 weeks out. And budget, I believe we have dates set up here for that date, the 26th. Is there any other dates that, I think that's the only date I had that we've scheduled. Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are we able to, we have a few minutes before this meeting is, our next meeting is scheduled to begin, and it seems like everyone's questions have been answered already. So could we take this opportunity maybe to start looking backwards? What date we want the budget before the city council, and we have a public hearing we need to schedule and are required to give statutory notice for things like that?
That's a good idea. Dr. Vidal, have you been able to kind of give some thought to that, working backwards?
Sure. So do you want this to align with the cities? And I know last year we did the city council and the school budget, on a Tuesday and a Thursday. If we're ahead of where the city is in terms of we started a little bit earlier, is it an issue for us to go early, or would you like to try to keep them? I know Mr. Gingras talked about going in June, but is that something that, you want us to both go at the same time, and does it make it easier for the council?
Our hope on the city side is to get the budget to the city council by the end of May. Likely, it will probably trickle into the very beginning of June. And in years past, like you said, we've had city and school on a Tuesday, Thursday. They kind of alternate, but that's how we've done in the past. So, yeah, I mean, it makes sense to kind of align them, but we're definitely, the school budget's a little further along in the process than the city side. We've started to do department reviews, but definitely the school budget is a little further along than the city side at this point. So, yeah, I would think if we plan our meetings, the final vote from the city council mid-June, and kind of work backwards from there.
Sure, and we may be ready mid-May, and then we have our documents in a row, we can send it to them for their review, and then just, schedule our meeting with the council just to align with that, just so that all gets in. But, I don't necessarily, if the committee is ready to vote in May, I don't see any issues with, maybe 2 more meetings. We have the 26th, we probably need another one after that, because I have some things to bring to the committee. But we probably need at least one after the 26th.
Mr. Amico?
Thank you, through the chair. And I do agree on an earlier date than later. I just think that this year is going to be a little bit different. April vacation's coming up. There are a lot of educators in the state, Eastern Mass, who are going to be on the move. You're talking about principals, assistant principals, teachers, hopefully, all sorts of staff members. And I just think that everyone's going to be vying for the same candidates. Everyone's going to be vying for the best candidates. And I just think that if we are far ahead, and we can get it done earlier than later, I think it just benefits us to filling those staffing holes down the road, because we're going to be competing against a lot of other districts for the same people. Thank you.
Makes sense, thank you. Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I agree with Dr. Vidal and Mr. Amico. And you, Mr. Mayor, we are pretty far along in this process, and I just as soon not rush it, but wrap it up in May if we're capable of it. We have a meeting scheduled for the 26th. Can I propose that we do a budget meeting on May 3rd and schedule a public hearing perhaps for May 17th? That gives us between May 3rd and May 17th a substantial amount of time in case we need additional meetings. And both May 3rd and May 17th are off nights for school committee meetings, so it gives us also extended time during those evenings. Although I think Mr. Olympio may be in a dugout in the 13-year-old Babe Ruth team some of those nights, so we'll excuse him if necessary.
I think that's a good suggestion. Should we work off of that plan for now? Make adjustments if need be, but, so why don't we plan for our next meeting is the 26th, prior to our regular scheduled meeting on that evening. And then let's block off pretty much every Thursday in May. So May 3rd and May 17th would be budget. May 10th and May 24th would be regular meetings. I think I have that right.
Tuesday, not Thursday.
What am I saying?
You said Thursday.
Thursday, those are the correct
Those are-
dates, but I said it should be Tuesdays. So Tuesdays, the 3rd and the 17th will be budget, and the 17th would be the public meeting. Regular school committee meetings would be Tuesday, the 10th and 24th. Okay.
With that, Mr. Mayor, through you to Dr. Vidala, could you please ask Ms. Maccarelli to post the public hearing in the obligatory manner so that we make sure that the public is notified? Thank you.
Budget meetings on the 3rd and the 17th, should we plan those for 6 PM, 7 PM? Yeah, you can't get here till, yeah. How about 6:30 or maybe a little earlier? Okay, so on the 3rd and the 17th, Dr. Vidala, if you can just make a note, those will be at 6:30. Our regular meeting on the 10th and the 24th will stay as scheduled at 7 PM. Okay.
Thank you. So it kind of seems like we send you back with some homework and, when you come back with more information. So while we're on that, could you also look at the coaches' salaries? Those were something we kind of touched upon last time. I don't believe that they've had a raise for many years, and it's usually only voted on during the budget. So I'd like to know if you could kind of look into that and see where they are. And while we're doing that, I think we have some in the middle school now as well. If we could just make sure that those are cleared up, because I think they're forgotten every budget because they're not in any contract where we negotiate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter, for that. And I was planning on bringing up some sports issues, and I probably will later during my subcommittee report, but can we also look at, we did have a meeting where we talked with some booster organizations about some funds that they spend that may be more suitable to be in our budget. So could we perhaps look at that for the next April budget meeting? And I meant to follow up with Mr. Amico's question earlier about funding for COLAs, which I believe we have in this budget. We have one unit that has not ratified a budget, a collective bargaining agreement, and I don't recall whether or not we had a COLA in the current budget, because they're going to have some retroactive pay. So I don't know if we do or we don't, but if perhaps you can look at that and make sure that, or ensure that if we didn't budget for that in this current year, that we get it next year, and we will have those obligations.
Thank you. Anything else before we break? Okay, regular meeting starting at 7 PM, so we have a little bit of time before the regular meeting. So thank you, and we'll continue to work on the budget, and I think we all have our schedule moving forward, so thank you very much. Motion to continue to the next budget meeting, made by Mr. Olympio, seconded by Mrs. Carpenter, all in favor? All right, thanks, everyone.
1, 2.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call our regular school committee meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, April 12th, 2022, and we are starting our meeting tonight at 7:07 p.m. As always, our meetings are being broadcast live on PAT, and our minutes are being taken by our recording secretary, Leanna Harris. And as we get to public participation on the agenda, as always, we will allow anybody on Facebook or through that platform to join in and speak if they would like to be heard by, in front of the committee tonight. And when we get there, we'll just ask again to raise your hand and we will bring you into the meeting. So I'd like to start off the meeting with a moment of silence. If everybody could please stand, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, a couple of items. I'd like to go, we have our minutes. We have 3 minutes to be approved today. First one is from the budget meeting of March 22nd, 2022. I'd open that up for discussion and a vote.
Motion to approve the Budget School Committee meeting minutes of March 22nd, 2022.
Second.
Great, thank you. You've heard the motion by Mrs. Carpenter to approve the budget meeting minutes of March 22nd, 2022, seconded by Mr. Amico. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Thank you. And the next item, regular school committee meeting minutes of March 22nd. Mrs. Carpenter?
Motion to approve regular school committee meeting minutes, March 22nd, 2022.
Second.
Thank you. You've heard the motion by Mrs. Carpenter to approve the regular school committee meeting minutes from March 22nd, 2022, seconded by Mr. Amico. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
And the April 5th, 2022 budget meeting minutes.
Motion
Mrs.
to
Carpenter.
approve the Budget School Committee meeting minutes of April 5th, 2022.
Thank you. Further motion by Mrs. Carpenter to approve the April 5th, 2022 budget meeting minutes, seconded by Mr. Swanson. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Terrific, thank you. And now we'll go to approval of bills. We do have 2 warrants today. Mr. Olympio, I'll turn it to you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 5010 in the amount of $153,445.46 dated April 12, 2022, subject to audit.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. You've heard the motion for approval of warrant number 5010, seconded by Mrs. Carpenter. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 5011 in the amount of $2,014,978.68, subject to audit.
Second.
Thank you. You've heard the motion by Mr. Olympio to approve warrant number 5011, seconded by Mrs. Carpenter. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter? Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Terrific. Thank you very much. If there's no objection, I'd like to go out of order on the agenda and go to item number 5. We have some of our amazing students from Peabody High School here today that we're going to recognize, and I wanted to go to that item if there's no objection.
No objection.
Okay. I'll turn it to you, Dr. Vidala, for the introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we are very fortunate today to have some of our best and brightest from Peabody High here tonight. So we all know that Stage 1 drama is a sense of great pride, and they typically do very well in all of their performances. They're super impressive. This year in particular, they had a performance of Smallmouth Minds that not only did really well at their local competition, they went to the 2022 regionals, and they were named the winners of the regional competition, which is a huge accomplishment. So we have a number of our actors and some of the people who are backstage in the musical selections here tonight. So we have some certificates for them. We have Mr. Simmons here with us and their advisor, Ms. Stephanie Manning. So I'll call up Ms. Manning. We do have some certificates for the students who will talk a little bit about the production and the accomplishments that they've had, and then we'd like to call the students up and recognize them individually as well.
Thank you very much for having us tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephanie Manning. I'm the very proud drama teacher at Peabody Veterans Memorial High School. I am also the director for Peabody's entry to the Massachusetts High School Drama Festival. This production was my 13th directing at the high school. I've been with them since 2011, and it was 2 very long years that we were not able to participate in festival because of the pandemic. And with our first year back, I couldn't think of a more amazing group to go back with in our production of Small Mouth Sounds. So I would like to turn it over to Liz Soretkina, who is a junior at Peabody High School. She is also an actor in our production, to tell you a little bit about festival. If you don't know festival, it's kind of a beast, and I can't think of a better person to explain to you what it's all about. Let's go ahead, Liz.
Hello, my name is Liz. I'm a junior at Peabody High. I've been a part of Stage 1 since my freshman year. I actually started out on lights, and that was my first year at Festival, and it was truly just an experience to remember, and I wanted to go back the next year and the next year. Festival isn't just a place where you can go compete and win awards and brag, but it's somewhere where you can share your talent and your art with other schools that you might not even know have a program like that. It's really nice to be able to connect with people and to share what you know, especially with people that could live 100, 200 miles away from you, and they could be your next best friend because you have this one common thing that you can share. So this year was very phenomenal. It was a little bit different than typical years, but it was so nice just to be back and to be in a theater with people that cared about this exact same thing that you do, that you worked for so long on, and you just wanna give off what you know. And Stage 1 has definitely been a home and a place where me and all of these wonderful people and other crew members and actors, they can go and they can find home and love what they do every single day. Thank you.
Well, that was beautifully said, and thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. As I mentioned to all of you out before the meeting, you've been a great source of pride for our city, and I know it's probably been very frustrating the last couple of years that you haven't been able to perform as much as you should be, and all of us have been frustrated by what's going on. But to have you back on the stage, showing your talents, is just wonderful to see. I look forward to the performances in the future, and it's nothing better, I think, for all of us to see our talent in our city just doing their thing. And whether it's on stage in the sports fields or wherever it may be, it's just wonderful to see all of you succeed. And you've brought a great deal of pride to the community, so thank you so much for that. And I know I speak for everybody. We wanted you to come here today and recognize you in this way publicly, and to be able to present to you some certificate just to show our appreciation for everything you've done for our city. So it's great to have all of you here. Anybody want to add to that? Okay, so yeah, let's.
Okay, without further ado, this is just a small handful of the students who were part of this. We brought, I believe, 56 students with us to Drama Festival this year. So we want to recognize the following students for their work. The first is Dylan Bresnahan, who is an actor in our production. Yes, absolutely. Next is Christian Encarnacion, who is an actor in our production. Emil Nasto, who is an actor in our production and also a recipient of an All-Star Acting Award at the preliminary round of Drama Festival. Molly Roberge, who is an actor in our festival production and also the recipient of an All-Star Acting Award at the preliminary round of Drama Festival. Liz Soretkina, who is an actor in our production and also a recipient of an All-Star Acting Award at our preliminary round of Drama Festival. Isabel Avila, who is an actor in our production. Rin Brierly, who is an actor in our production and also received an All-Star Acting Award during the regional round of Drama Festival. John Howland, who was our music composer, received 2 awards at the preliminary round and regional round of Drama Festival for excellence in music composition. Emma Fitzgerald, who is our stage manager for the production, who received a Stage Manager's Award at both the preliminary and regional round of Drama Festival. Eva Joyce, who was our other stage manager, who also received an award for excellence in stage management at the preliminary and regional round of Drama Festival. Adam Cunha, who was our sound designer and operator, who received an award at both the preliminary and regional round of Drama Festival for excellence in sound design. Julia Leite, who was our other sound designer and operator, who also received an award at the preliminary round and regional round of Drama Festival for excellence in sound design. Aubriana Olette, who was our lighting designer and operator, who received an Excellence in Lighting Design Award at the preliminary and regional round of Drama Festival. And last but certainly not least, Maya Yaffe, who was our lighting designer and operator, who also received an award at Drama Festival for her work as in the preliminary and regional round. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great, one more round of applause for our students. Great. I always just feel like after like that, we should just wrap up the meeting. It just, you know. No, we have one more very important item. Student Advisory Board. So I'd like to go to that, stay out of order on the agenda, if no objection, and go to our Student Advisory Board. Come on up here, Jackie.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will share my screen. I have some slides. So we have Jackie Scopa with us again tonight. Okay. So here is our student advisory representatives. So take it away, Jackie.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks for having us here again. It's been a while since we've gotten to do this. We still have our very, very strong Student Advisory Council with us, and we just had a meeting today to kind of go over what we're going to talk about here. So, as usual, we're going to tell you about the highlights and going-ons at PVMHS, updates on some student government work, and the Bar Foundation grant. So Massachusetts State Student Government Day has just passed, along with Peabody Student Government Day that I was so graciously able to attend. I was able to follow the Secretary of the Mayor around for the day. And even though I spent my day dancing at the Senior Center and getting ice cream with Mr. Tom Gould, I have to say I don't think I'll ever be able to experience something like that again. I got to see all of the hard work that everyone here and outside of this room puts into the city, and my fellow seniors and I all had such a blast at both the daytime event and the nighttime meetings. We had a really, really good time. So as we just saw, Stage 1 drama won the Guild Regionals, which was amazing, and I was gonna list off those awards, but we've already covered that as well, which is fantastic, and Miss Manning, or Sman as we all know her, does a fantastic job in the classroom and both, directing and all of that. She's really, really loved throughout the entire community of PVMHS. And we also have spring sports underway. A lot of the teams are having a lot of fun. This has been our, one of the first really, really normal seasons as we enter the warmer months. And a lot of the seniors are definitely celebrating that as they go into their last senior seasons. And brought up at our student council meetings, we're working on launching a feminist club, so that's something new we got going on. We've had our first prom in 2 years. The junior prom just passed a couple weeks ago, and although I was not able to go, I heard so many great things. A lot of the students had a really, really awesome time. And I know teachers who were there helping to chaperone also had a great time seeing everyone get to experience something like that again. We've had 2 coffee houses and art showcases, again, returning to normal. We have a spring show coming in May, and the Community Service Club has been collecting items for a family of 12 from Afghanistan. Kids age ranging from 2-year-old twins to a 16-year-old. And they were collecting all sorts of items from basic sneakers, socks, clothes to, school supplies, backpacks, and they raised so many donations, and it was a very, very successful fundraiser they had going on. And DECA, as usual at Peabody, is continuing to do amazing things. So we are meeting with important parties to discuss the student parking lot and begin to troubleshoot issues. I know something that was brought up today was the bus ramp that has been used for anything but in a handful of recent years, so we're trying to see what the reason is on that and work out some issues that we think have a fixable solution. And making school spirit a priority has been huge, considering the mental decline we've had with COVID. School spirit, including more spirit days, spirit weeks, and with senior decisions coming in, trying to do a day where everyone can wear gear for wherever they plan on going next year, and just raising the excitement on the success that we've all been able to endure. Again, junior prom, a huge success, and some senior events coming up. We have senior luau, prom and plans, and a senior barbecue, so looking forward to all of those. And again, the Bar Foundation grant, these are all the teams that we're looking at right now, and the design team, student experience team, core beliefs team are all very, very much in the works, along with the other teams consistently meeting and consistently looking for amazing ways to use what's so graciously been given to us. So student involvement in the Bar Foundation grant, again, getting students of all age to contribute to this grant and how it could be used, and communication, transparency, and information sharing between students, teachers, advisors, faculty, all of the above is being absolutely prioritized, because I think we all need to come together to make this the amazing thing that it can be.
And in addition to that, so far you sent out 2 surveys with great response rates, with more surveys to come.
Lots of surveys. Yeah, any questions I can answer?
Thank you, Jackie, and great job. You present yourself so well and explain things very well. No, a lot of information there. That was terrific.
I appreciate that.
I did want to speak about Student Government Day. I know a number of you were here and took part in that. That was a very special day. I was a little worried because we haven't had Student Government Day in a couple of years. I didn't know if there would be that interest and that excitement about Student Government Day. But to me, it was a huge success. I want to say it was, if not my favorite, one of my very favorite years in having Student Government Day. The students, Jackie, you and so many, you represented yourselves well, your family, your school, and the city. It was really a proud day, and it was fun, too. We had a lot of laughs.
Definitely.
But, yeah, it was, the senior center is always a great trip. And then, somehow we took a little trip over to Treadwell's, somehow. And then Dr. Vidala did the same with his group, the school committee. Somehow we always end up there. But that was terrific. One thing I did want to mention, and I'll mention it now, because it would be something I was going to mention in our report, but it has been spoken about in the past by the Student Advisory Board and by a number of school committee members. So we are completely done, well, I don't want to say completely done. We are done the parking lot lighting project. So all the parking lot lights are complete. teachers' parking lot, and student parking lot, except for a couple in the back end of the student parking lot. And there's one on the side where the students cross over from the student parking lot on that end, down a little further, kind of where, Mrs. Carpenter, you've spoken about the library area. There's a special part that's required for that light, and that should be coming in any day now, and we're going to get that complete as well. So all the lights have been upgraded and LED lighting, so I think it's a much better situation over there now. We did put wall packs on a couple of areas that we felt were dim lighting, particularly the front of the building and on the side where the gymnasium is. So I think we're in a much better spot. There's still a couple of remaining items in the student parking lot and on that one stretch there over near the library entrance or exit. We'll get that wrapped up. I'm told that should take place, but there was an extra part that was needed for that work. So that's been a cause for concern and justifiably so, but I think we're just about done there, which is good news. Any questions for Jackie or Mrs. Prouty? Mr. Amico?
Through the chair, Jackie, great job, thank you so much. I'm going to put you on the spot, but if you
Okay.
don't know the answer, I know we have others that might be
Okay,
able to help
I
us.
can try my best.
I had a friend reach out. She has a couple of daughters who've gone through the prom and has some dresses to donate, or gowns, right? Is that what we're calling them? Called gowns? Sorry. Do we know if we are accepting donations and who's collecting them?
So in the library, we actually have something we like to call Tanner Max, like TJ Maxx. And Ms. Moylan, the librarian, she accepts donations of any kind, sweaters, sweatshirts, socks, sneakers, prom dresses. There are actually quite a few of. So if anyone would like to donate them there, I'm sure Ms. Moylan would be more than happy to accept those. Yeah, of
And
course.
she'd appreciate any hangers you have too.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Any other questions for Jackie and Mrs. Prouty? Bev, or Mrs. Dunn, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It really was fun. Student Government Day was awesome, and I agree with what the mayor said. It was really exciting. You could tell everybody was so happy to be there and to be able to do it again. And it was nice to see so many family members had come to watch the evening meeting, and it was a great year. I'm really glad it's back. I did want to thank you for taking care to continue on about the parking and the traffic issue. It's been a long time, oh God, forever. And also, I'm really happy to let everyone know, you've heard me talk about a training that MASC was going to offer to student leaders, any members of the student advisory boards. It's going to take place May 14th at Essex North Shore. It's going to be run at the same time they have the annual Charting the Course, which is a program for adult school committee members. And I got confirmation of it yesterday. So you'll be getting an invitation, and I hope you can come. It should be a really great meeting. It's a whole presentation on your role, your responsibilities. They do a wonderful job on this, and the students actually come away with a lot of great knowledge and ready for more experiences. So keep an eye open. I'll go through Ms. Prouty, and I'll get that information to you. It isn't even in print yet, but you're hearing it first.
Okay, all right, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Any other comments, Mr. Swanson?
Thank you for your updates. Obviously, love the enthusiasm, love you have the school spirit. You speak the spirit of there. I appreciate you bringing it here. Ms. Prouty, I appreciate what you're doing with the Student Council, the Student Advisory Board, and the Bar Foundation. I obviously have some insight into what's going on. For those that don't know, the students that are participating are very excited to be part of it. They're helpful, and I think that comes out with your surveys that you're seeing there. So the participation and all there's spirit in that school, and it's awesome to hear. For those that don't know, Jackie was, as she said, Daryl's assistant. She worked the entire night as we were sitting and having our meetings, which were awesome. I saw you handing out bags and helping coordinate, so you did an awesome job there as well.
Thank you.
My first Student Government Day, this is the benefits that I really enjoy. It was awesome. I get the energy from the mayor. I got the energy from Mr. Dunn, Mr. Amico. It was awesome. So if that ever falls off, I will quit. That's my threat. It was a lot of fun. I appreciate the students were you go into it a little apprehensive, not knowing the schedules, and as Dr. Vidal will tell you, you go back to the administrative office, and maybe you get a couple students going to be like, yeah, that was cool, okay. the entire day, the student body was just alive. It was awesome. So great work to you and all your classmates that participated.
Thank you.
Well said, Mr. Swanson, that was good. Any other comments? Go, Mr. Miko, yeah.
And through the chair, and your counterpart, Darryl McCarthy, was awesome.
Yes.
Put that all together. The whole
Fantastic.
city hall staff, and the food was great.
Yes.
And we had a lot of fun, so thank you. I just wanted to mention her, because I know she worked hard on that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Darryl did a terrific job. All right, thank you both so much for being here.
Thank
Great.
you.
Yeah, why don't we go back? All right, let's go back to item 4, continued business, just to stay with our agenda. So, Mrs. Dunn, any update that you want to provide today on the Welch School project?
Just a couple, just to keep people apprised of situations. Right now, what's going on is the phasing of the project is being re-examined and reworked. We are facing the same problem everybody else is with the supply chain issues and the cost of materials. And I have to say that the 3 corporations that we have, Doran Whittier, Danisco Design, and Consigli, are working so hard to make sure that they're able to get things in time to follow through on the project as it was planned. The lead times that they have always had, fairly standard lead times, are just absolutely out of the realm of their past experience. So they've had to adjust a lot of different things. Project is still set to begin on the first day of the last day of school and to be ready for students on the first day of school in 2 years. Those are our bookends, and everything in the middle is going to be adjusted and juggled and just worked and worked and worked to make sure that the project comes through on time. And we had a meeting last week of this Welch School Building Committee. They voted to proceed with the first early release package, which is to authorize bidders to be selected for the project. We have early release package number 2, which is coming up. Again, they're adjusting some of these dates because of what's happening with materials. It's just really volatile, and that will be coming up. So they have to get all of those in place in order to begin the project. But the preliminary duties, the preliminary work on the school is still going to take place over the summer, and they're ready. That last day of school, they're coming on board. So if anybody ever has any questions, feel free, let us know. And the next meeting actually is to be determined, because we were trying to adjust it so that the school building committee can take the appropriate votes depending upon when the bid packages are released. So we haven't really set a date in stone for May, but it's generally the end of the month on a Thursday morning at 9:30.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Okay, any questions? All right, we will now go back to Superintendent's report. Dr. Vidala?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple more items. So the next item on the agenda is our virtual school. And so in order to continue our virtual school this year, DESE is requiring a vote of the school committee to support the district application to continue for another year. So right now, we were fortunate to have Dr. Lord and some students present in March, and we currently have 126 students pre-registered for next year. So I did send a copy of the application, and really it's just keeping a lot of the things the same. They changed some of the enrollment numbers. But we had talked about previously seeing how this went and putting some of these salaries into ESSER for a pilot of 1 to 3 years. After year 1, I think we can all say that it's been incredibly successful and probably exceeded our expectations. Dr. Lord and his team are working to make sure that we're leading the way across the state, and to make sure that we're providing enough support for our kids. So Dr. Lord needs our blessing, or needs the committee's blessing to submit the application. So So we can certainly entertain any questions from the committee, but in the end, we would like to entertain a motion to support the application of Peabody Prep Virtual School for the 2022-2023 school year, subject to annual funding and school accountability performance reviews.
Thank you, Dr. Vidal. I'll open it up. Mrs. Dunn?
I'd like to make a motion to follow the recommendation of the superintendent.
Thank you. You've heard the motion made by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Olympio. On the motion, Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the committee is well aware of my position on this issue. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Dr. Lord. I've worked with him for a number of years, and I think he does a great job in what he does, and appreciate his staff that I know are supported by him and the students that choose this program for whatever reasons they choose to be involved in this program. It's just a fundamental disagreement I have with students staying at home and not attending schools and being around their peers and a bunch of other stuff that, like I said, I've already expressed. So my no vote on this is not a reflection on Dr. Lord or any of his staff, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hockman. Okay, any other comments before we do our vote? Mr. Amico?
Thank you, through the chair to Dr. Vidal and the committee. I do support this. I do have one question to Dr. Vidal. Can we get some more information on whether or not DESE is looking to add outside students from other districts at some point for this type of program?
Yes, so that would require legislation, but we are working with two groups in the Commonwealth, one in Essex County and one statewide, that are very much interested in expanding this. So we're looking at our option for entering into MOUs with individual districts that want to participate, similar to how we tuition kids into the community school. We're looking at that as one way to be able to accept more kids. So we, Dr. Lord and I have a meeting this Thursday to discuss that. So we're looking at opportunities to expand because there are communities that would love their kids to be part of this. And so if the legislation doesn't change, we can enter into MOUs individually with school districts that would like to attend. So we will provide updates as we get those. Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Vidal. And those districts would be paying for those students to come over?
Correct.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Thoughts or comments before we go to roll call? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mr. Hockman?
No.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The next item is regarding our FKO partnership. So I had a great conversation with Debbie Nealand, and I did speak to Dan Doucette regarding our FKO partnership, and the way that our current agreement is in place, if the superintendent comes to the committee and notifies that we'd like to continue a mutually beneficial, to continue year to year, we can do that annually. So I did speak with Debbie Nealand. She is interested in continuing next year. We are interested in continuing with her. We do not need to go to an RFP at this time. So Dan has said that, we can continue for a year with our current agreement, and we can do it on a year-to-year basis. If at any time we'd like to go out to bid, I would recommend, similar to when we do a transportation contract or something like that, that we would start in December or January. But our partnership has evolved and adapted beyond before and after school with FKO. They've done summer programs, they've done enrichment programs, they've brought our staff in to work with their kids. They have some professional development dollars that they would like to share with us and provide for our teachers, and the only obligation is that their staff would be included as well. So it's been a really strong partnership, and we've been able to expand it over time. They did a great job during COVID to help our students who were at home on the hybrid days. So we would like to plan to continue this partnership for an additional year, and then move forward with them. If there are any objections, we can certainly bring it out to an RFP moving forward. But at this time, I don't see any need to change the great partnership that we have with FKO.
Do we need a motion on this, Doc?
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Mrs. Dunn?
Just a question. When does our contract with FKO expire? I know that annually we have to have this type of a discussion where you recommend that we continue, but what is the date on that contract currently?
So currently now we're on a year-to-year. So we had a 3-year deal through '22, and now we're year-to-year. And in speaking with Dan, it benefits the district. If we want to just do it year by year, it's almost like a tenant at will. We have the option to go to out to bid if we wanted to moving forward. We're not required to do so, and so we can maintain this year to year. When we worked with Debbie Nealon, and she's very much in agreement that we'd like to continue it for another year. So we can, it's almost like an annual option that each year we can renew.
Okay, so there are no changes to the terms or to the money that
No,
exchanges or
not at this
anything
time.
like that?
They have the same amount of money that they would give back to the district. They're giving us a portion, I think it's $60,000 each year. And so we'll continue that process, and then if we would like to reevaluate that, we have our new business manager starting on May 2nd. He'll take a look at that, and we'll see if it's beneficial to continue this way or to, enter into a new longer contract if we feel as though that's necessary.
Okay. So basically, we're voting tonight to extend the contract for another year.
So it's not required to vote. So we are able to come year to year, and each year we don't need an additional vote, but it is in the contract that we do come to the committee. If we would like to deviate from what we're currently doing, we could do a vote on that. But I asked Dan Doucette, and he said that there's not an obligation to vote if we extend it on one year at a time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Dr. Vidal, you're absolutely right. FKO has been a wonderful partner for the school district, and I don't know what we would do without them. Talk about, kids on the street after school and before school now, and they really have grown. I think they're here now 13 or 14 years or something, 12, something like. It's been a long, long time, and they continue to enhance the experience that our students have, and even the I know we talk a lot about social and emotional issues, and their staff is well trained to deal with that and a lot of other things. Can you please, it's been a while since I've looked at this contract, sounds like 3 years. Can you please let me know or let us know what the term in the contract is for notice if they were to elect not to re-enter into an agreement with us? Because we'd be devastated without them. And I'd want to know that we would have an ample opportunity to either, negotiate with them or look for a successor.
Any other comments? Okay.
All right, thank you. And I will say, their staff has been so receptive to us, and we've had several meetings over time. If there's any issues that come up, they come in, and they're very collaborative. I had a great conversation yesterday with Debbie Nealon again about her just appreciation for the relationship with Peabody, and we do intend to have this for many years to come. But I do think it's important for us to have things in writing that protect us moving forward as well. So we'll definitely engage in that, and I think having a new business manager on, we can tighten up some of those things. Okay, so the last item is donations. So we have two donations that we'd like to bring forth.
Hold on a
Sorry,
second. Mrs. Dunn?
Sorry, Mrs. Dunn.
I'm sorry, if you could just send each of us a copy of the current contract, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. So we have two donations. They're a little bit different, so the second one's a little bit unique. And we do have Mrs. Holden here, I believe. So the first one, though, is literacy kits. So the McCarthy School and the West School were fortunate enough to get a grant through Amazon, and Amazon provided literacy kits for first graders, and they had some supplies to take home, some stickers, and a kit for individual students. So each first grader at each of those schools received those kits through Amazon. The second one is a little bit more interesting, and so I would like if Mrs. Holden would indulge me and come up. Her grade 3 class did a fundraiser for Haven for Hunger Citizens Inn, and they were looking to get donations for diapers, and they got over 1,300 donations to help out. But then I don't want to spoil it, so I'm gonna turn it over to you. They got a generous donation that is very unique, and I thought it should be recognized. So I'll turn it over.
There we go. Thanks. So I started an after-school program at McCarthy School called the Coffee Bean Club, and it was inspired by a book called The Coffee Bean, and it's also a children's book, Coffee Bean for Kids. And the whole point of it is to encourage kids to be positive, to be resilient, and to give back to their community. So we started out with 20 students, basically, that joined the club. They're very excited to join. And we had them go within the community of McCarthy and explain what it meant to be a coffee bean. So they were very excited to exchange with their peers what the 3 rules were for a coffee bean club. One is help others, the second one is include everybody, and the last one is smile. So our first project was to start a collection for the Haven from Hunger. So let me move this a little closer, sorry. Haven from Hunger, and we started out with 5 items that we wanted everyone to collect, the whole school to collect, and they were toothpaste, shampoo, kids' cereal, kids' snacks, and kids' gloves or hats. And then we had parents, teachers, actually work on diapers, baby food, and formula, because those are higher priced items. So we thought it would be good for the kids to collect those main things. And we collected quite a bit. Haven from Hunger came and took all the donations, and Mrs. Holden's class got the most donations in diapers, so they won the prize for getting the most donations. And then we also did another community service thing with No Child Left Hungry, where the 20 students put together 285 little gift bags for that organization, No Child Left Hungry, for their backpacks. So they've loved it. We're all done with it, but we're going to do it again next year. It's a great, great club.
So the kids are really excited about the Coffee Bean Club. It kind of blew through the whole school. You know, you'd hear kids like either, I'm being a coffee bean, or you're not acting like a coffee bean. So they were just really, really into it. Mrs. Zatoli, the principal at the McCarthy, also really encourages the kids to set personalized learning goals. So we kind of took the momentum from what Jane started. I had the kids set personalized learning goals and really just tried to show them that they can make an impact in the community, and that also there's so many community members that are willing to help out. You just have to ask and be positive and do good things. So I reached out to family and friends and got them to donate diapers. So each time one of the students met their personalized learning goal, they got to go to the office and celebrate, and then diapers were donated. So it was great for them because they saw, you know, each day, like I had boxes and bags of diapers in my car. Made my youngest son a little nervous why I had so many diapers. But each day someone met a goal, you know, I'd bring in a thing of diapers. They got excited about adding it to the tally. You know, we sorted them by brand, by size, all that. It kept them going. The momentum kept going and going. And then Rick Sandler, who is a Peabody vocational graduate, worked at Peabody Municipal Light in his younger years, ended up being a supervisor there, retired from there, and started a business called Electric Connection. You know, he just thought that was great, and he just loves to see kids doing well. So he, instead of donating diapers, donated $1,000 in the name of the children in the classroom if they met their personalized learning goals that he would donate to their campaign. And then in talking with the children and Allie from Citizens Inn, we decided it was best, instead of us spending the money, that donate it directly to Citizens Inn and specifically Haven from Hunger, so they could use it to best suit their needs instead of being overwhelmed with diapers where we already had more than 1,000 diapers. So yeah, 1,329 was the final count. So Allie's coming over on Thursday, presenting them with the big check. They're swapping the diapers, and they're just so excited. And it was really a great experience for the kids, and they're looking forward to doing the club again next year. So it was great.
Please, that's wonderful. Any comments or questions? Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to be a coffee bean. Yeah, so we at No Child Goes Hungry in Peabody appreciate what the Coffee Bean Club is doing. We were the benefactors of the chips or the snacks that were donated, and we put them in backpacks last week, I believe, to students. And the bags that you talked about putting together, you know, we're fortunate to be kind of healthy financially, so we decided as a board to purchase some items for the kids that receive our backpacks. We looked at them as spring-type activity So there's a package of jacks with a ball and some sidewalk chalk and a jump rope and one of those paddles with a ball connected to it and a few other items. And when we learned about your club, we thought that would be a great project. And you guys did a great job packaging all that together in the nice, I don't know what it's the plastic bags, but it's they're pink and blue and they're spring like bags. And they're going to go out, not to spoiler alert here, but they're going to be distributed to our kids this week. So just in advance of Easter, that was kind of the initial thought, was to do something Eastery, but we try to be a little reserved when it comes to some of the religious stuff. So we decided to go with springy kind of things. But thank you very, very much for all the work. And please, I think you should have gotten a thank you card from us. If you haven't, it's on its way. And thank all your students for the tremendous work that they're doing. But more importantly, thank you for instilling in them these thoughts and ideas. It's never too early for our young people, for anybody, to learn that it's important to give back, it's important to care about your community, and it's important to care about each other. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Swanson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I applaud you for having the young children feel the joy of giving, which surrounds many of the conversations that we're having, starting younger, getting them involved. When they learn that young, they experience the joy that you guys are obviously expressing and helping them feel. They're going to continue that on, and it's extremely important to start at the young age. So I appreciate what you're doing for them, as well as it's going to benefit the community now and in the future, so thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. This is wonderful. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Very impressed with all the work that you've done. And so at this time, I entertain a motion from the committee to send letters of gratitude to not only Amazon, but to Ms. O'Brien, Ms. Holden, and Mr. Sandler. And just, really, I'm so grateful for all the work that they've done.
Second.
Okay, so a motion made by Mrs. Carpenter, seconded by Mr. Amico. All in favor? That's a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And with that, that concludes the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. Now we'll open it up to public participation. Is there somebody that would like to come forward? Anybody sign in to speak today, Mr. Vidal?
Seeing none.
Okay. Next item, written communication. We do have 3 items to be received this evening. First item is a communication from Mr. Greg Hurley regarding the South School. I did connect with Mr. Hurley earlier today. I know some of you have spoken with him as well. He raises a good topic that we need to get into. I would like to have this item sent to Building and Grounds Subcommittee and then bring Mr. Hafey in. So yeah, we want to make sure we're doing the right thing here.
So moved.
So moved. Okay. So motion made by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Olympio. All in favor? That's a vote. Next item is the MASC annual nomination forms to be received.
Second.
Okay. Thank you for the motion by Mrs. Carpenter, seconded by Mrs. Dunn, to receive item number 2. All in favor? That's a vote. And the third communication from the Peabody Veterans Council regarding Memorial Day activities. Very happy that we are going to be having our full parade on Memorial Day, May 30th, 2022, run by our Peabody Veterans Council. So very glad after 2 years we've been unable to have the Memorial Day. It's an important part of our city, important part of our nation. So very glad we're having our Memorial Day parade. To be received, Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Swanson. All in favor? Terrific. Okay, subcommittee reports. Education Subcommittee. Mr. Amico?
Thank you. We had a meeting on, and I'm forgetting the date, but it was well attended by Dr. Chase, Mr. Hockman, Dr. Vidala, the mayor was there as well, and we had rabbis from various temples in Peabody. And Mr. Hockman, would you like to give a quick rundown on it? Because you were really into it, and I And I couldn't do it any justice because you were really, you're passionate about it, and I support it 100%.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. I appreciate the kind words and the opportunity to speak. We did have a really nice meeting that night, and we talked about an issue that's, I think, timely and relevant now. We talked about genocide and Holocaust studies and things like hate and, some really horrific things. And we talked about it because, for a variety of reasons, we need to do a better job with our youth when it comes to this issue and teaching them and hoping to eradicate hate that still exists. And also because the state legislature and the governor were, in their wisdom, passed legislation, and the governor signed it into law in December, mandating that all school districts provide Holocaust and genocide studies to middle school students and high school students. So Dr. Chase was an integral part of that meeting, and I believe that she may have some update for us from what DESE is doing to implement that legislation.
So very timely for this meeting. We just received the guidelines from DESE yesterday and started to comb through those. Some of the big overarching themes are that students in middle and high school will go through Holocaust/genocide study. And the 3 goals associated with this are to promote a broader understanding of human rights issues in general, to examine patterns of genocide that show how prejudice and hatred can impact societies, and then also to reject group-specific targeting and prejudice that can lead to violence and genocide. So we've taken some initial steps already. So we started to review the guidelines that were published just yesterday. Previously, we had met with Ms. Colton, Executive Director of the Lapin Foundation, and hearing about some of the offerings that she has in terms of training with that organization. We've scheduled a couple of brief meetings tomorrow with the principal of the middle school as well as curriculum facilitators at the middle school, so hoping just to get some initial conversations started about what the expectations are from DESE, and then to pick up after break from where we leave off tomorrow. So we're looking for some natural entry points into the work that we can build upon, knowing that we have some things in place already, for example, the study of night at the middle school level, and then thinking about how we can build upon what already exists and bring in some partnerships and some training where necessary. Some additional steps in terms of combing through that DESE guidance, there are a ton of resources that they have provided to us. So to be able to comb through those and see what might be useful for us and what might not be a good match for us. Identifying what to teach. So there's a lot within the guidelines that gives, some latitude as to what we teach. So thinking about what's in place already and where we want to go with it. From there, thinking about the professional development. So not just the what to teach, but how to teach it. So giving our teachers the confidence to be able to work with such sensitive topics and be able to answer some of the tough questions that kids might bring up as they go through the studies. Thinking forward to summer, building and refining some units that we might be able to put in place, and identifying, again, the PD opportunities that go along with that. And then working with local experts. So how can they augment what we have within the schools? So all of that will be happening, but starting with those initial conversations this week, and then continuing after the break.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chase, for all your work, and Mr. Hockman. And John Swanson, you were also there, so thank you for being there. Dr. Vidala, Mr. Mayor, would you like to add anything to that, or?
No, that was very well said. Great to hear Dr. Chase in that report with that recent update. So that's important. I'm glad to move forward with this initiative. I think it's extremely important.
And I just wanted to the committee, Mayor Backcourt, thank you for your leadership as you oversee a group with a bunch of mayors from across the Commonwealth on this issue. So thank you for your leadership on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Mr. Hockman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Dr. Chase, for your work in this area, specifically your work in general for the school district. I did want to mention Debbie Colton, who was a huge part of that meeting as well. She's a tremendous person as well as resource for us, and we're lucky that they're out of Salem and local to us, so that we can benefit from her knowledge, her organization's knowledge in this subject area, and hopefully aid you, Dr. Chase, in developing a curriculum. With that, if I can ask through me to you, because I guess I'm not chairing the meeting. No, good. Do you have any, and if you don't know, we could talk about it at the next meeting, but do you have any expectation as to when we would start implementing some of this curriculum? Would it be in the fall of this year?
So we would look to do a lot of the work over the summer to get ready for it, and then from there, plan the professional development that would go with it. So up on my board in the office, we're starting to put together the summer work, and that would be part of it.
Thank you. And at that meeting, and I'll continue to talk about, I'm not an educator. You guys do a great job with that, and Mr. Miko's an educator. I know what my vision is for this, and I'm not sure if it aligns with what's educationally sound, but, my hope is that we're going to do more than integrate some of these issues into subject matter that we're already teaching. My hope is that, at the middle school here, we have electives that change, I think, 4 times a year, and it becomes an elective. So it's a 6-week concentration or 7-week concentration. My hope at the high school is the same thing. I know we have a Holocaust and Genocide Studies elective, which is typically taken by upper class people. My hope and expectation is that we introduce this subject matter as early as 6th grade, but no later than 7th grade in that level of concentration, and also at the high school in the 9th or 10th grade year as opposed to in the 12th grade year. It would be nice to see that elective at 12th for the upper class people to continue and maybe have a more in-depth conversation and smaller class sizes where they can delve into some of the subject matter a little bit more. But this broad scope of what we're talking about here, that's my hope. I'd want to call it my expectation. I'm tempted to call it my expectation, but I'm trying to temper myself a little bit. So with that, and the reason I brought this up now is I hope that we're going to, through the mayor to Dr. Vidal now, we may have some budget implications if that's what the district is capable of doing for the 22-23 budget. So perhaps we can, I know we have a little bit of time between now and when we're going to vote on the budget for a final, the final budget. So if there are budget implications, can we please include them so that we're not going to, a budgetary issue won't prevent the implementation of the curriculum.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. All set, Joe? Oh, thank you. Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Chase. I do want to say that one of the things that Peabody offered, and I don't know when it stopped, in addition to the Holocaust and Genocide course at the high school, this was totally separate. It was here at Higgins. It was an amazing program, and it crossed all classes. I think it was for 8th grade, and I could be wrong, but I know kids waited to be able to, be able to move along in the grades to get into, I do think it was 8th grade. What they did here, and the person you can speak with, of course, Todd Busey would know this, but Sudie Smaller had been the library media specialist for many years at Higgins. And she coordinated this project where they brought in a speaker, Yoko Watkins. She was an author. And she would come in and address the students. But in all the different classes in the building, everyone was involved with the study of that book. It was required reading in the English classes. It was worked upon in the art classes, so there were these beautiful displays in the library of artwork students did in conjunction with the study of this book. There were all kinds of things that went on in the geography classes and the history classes, and it was all to get the entire school ready for the visit of Ms. Watkins. And it was a really, really big deal. The PTO contributed to being able to put Miss Watkins up at a hotel so that she could travel here. She lived down the Cape. And sadly, she passed away in January. And her obituary was absolutely amazing, just as she had been. She led an incredible life. But I thought one of the most meaningful things was her family had requested that any donations be made in her memory to your local middle school PTO to pay for field trips for students who could not afford it. So even passing away, she was still thinking about that level. And the really awesome thing about that whole project, the whole curriculum, it was everywhere. It wasn't just for a group of students who wanted to study. It wasn't in one subject. It was the whole school. And it built from, I would say, mid-fall right on up until the spring. So if you can find out about what they did, I thought it was amazing, and I think it was a really nice model for how to get kids to understand different cultures, to see how horrific it is when people have a prejudice that causes someone to just want to wipe out an entire race. And it was very, very well done. I don't think I could ever say enough about it forever. It really was well done. So many thanks to them. I don't know if they do anything like that now. Miss Watkins did stop traveling a few years ago, and that did stop the, having her come in and speak, having the students actually get to meet her. But I do think they still kept that book on the required reading.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Okay. Mr. Miko, all set with that report? Okay. Finance, Mr. Olympio.
Yes, I'm happy to say that we started negotiations with Unit A last week, and we look forward to working with them in the coming weeks. Thank you.
School Safety Subcommittee.
Nothing new to
Rubio.
report.
Athletics and Wellness.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We met on April 4th. Mr. Amico was present. I think Mr. Swanson was present, Superintendent. We had Food Services was present with us as well, and we talked about a few things with them. First, we talked about the Summer Eats program. I'm happy to report that they're well on their way to taking over the summer food program for the city of Peabody. So any person under the age of 18, as always, will be eligible for lunch, and it'll be provided by Peabody culinary staff that work in the school district. They're working out the sites that they're going to be able to provide food, but plan on continuing multiple sites as Haven from Hunger did, as Haven from Hunger Citizens Inn did for the last couple of years, to be able to provide food to our younger people around the city. We also talked about a wellness plan. We have a requirement to put a wellness plan together, I believe, every 3 years. This April meeting was our second meeting in the wellness, towards the wellness plan. I think Dr. Vidala is going to help populate a wellness committee that will work on that plan, and I think we're going to have 2 more meetings, the next of which is a week from Monday. The 20, was it the, I believe it's the 25th, it might be the 20th, it's the 26th, at 6 p.m. here at the Higgins. We then went on to talk to a variety of booster organization officers who were able to give us a tremendous amount of information with what each of their organizations do, and in particularly pay for out of the donations that they receive and collections that they take. And I know that we plan on working with them to relieve them of some of the financial obligations that they've been satisfying, and we talked about that a little bit earlier in the budget meeting. So I think that's, and by the way, sorry, I wanted to also recognize Athletic Director DeRocha was at that meeting, was an integral part of the conversation, all of the conversations that took place, both the booster conversation as well as the food service conversation, and he was a tremendous help during that meeting.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Ockman, for that report. Okay. Quality and Standards, Mrs. Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to schedule a meeting of the Quality and Standards Subcommittee after polling the members. Normally, I would have had a meeting prior to our regular school committee meeting, but we've been having budget sessions. So before our agenda for Quality and Standards gets too long and we need a 6-hour meeting, I'm going to plan one on an off night whenever the members are available. And it will be in the near future because we do have things we really do need to address.
Thank you. Parent and student advisory boards?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you heard earlier when I was speaking with our advisory board member, MASC is going to host a training for student representatives, and it will be May 14th up at Essex North Shore. It's going to be really very, very informative for our students. MASC actually worked with the Council of Student School Councils and School trying to think of the name, I can't think of the name of the group, but it's an advocacy group. Students actually came in and helped formulate this training. And MASC had an intern this past summer, and she had worked on a historical project of pulling together all the history of student advisory boards and then helping to prepare the materials for the training. So it's actually really in-depth, and much of it will be run by other student leaders. So I think our students, they will all be getting an invitation. Students from across the state are invited, and hopefully we'll have a very good turnout for that, and our students will really be trained very well on their role.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Building and Grounds Subcommittee?
Nothing to report.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Special Education Parent Advisory Board, Mr. Olympio.
Nothing to report.
City Council and Legislative Delegation, Mrs. Carpenter.
Thank you. We did have a meeting on April 4th. We did get a request from the City Council for an update on some few items, so we did meet here at the Higgins with a few city councilors. Mr. Swanson and myself, Mrs. Dunn was present. We gave them some updates on redistricting. Dr. Vidala was here as well, updated them on the current redistricting meetings that have been going on. One of the other questions that we gave them updates on was the Welch School plan during construction. We did update them on where some staff would be, where students would be dispersed. During those conversations, it was identified that we would not be able to accommodate an election for we're expecting a primary in September, and thankfully Mrs. Dunn was here and was able to give us an update on the construction status and when things would be moving, and they will be starting right at the last day of school, and Mrs. Dunn did explain the mapping of the construction that would be going throughout the school, and we did identify that we would not be able to accommodate the primary in September. What we did identify, and the City Council is going to bring it back to discuss, is an alternative location, maybe the golf course, but I'm not sure if they've had that discussion yet. So that was one of the other items that came out of that conversation. Dr. Vidala did give an update on the budget. We talked about funding, where ESSER was going, the future of ESSER. The City Council did give us an update on their funds as well. And as previously mentioned, we did bring up an alumni organization. Mrs. Dunn did have some old paperwork on that she's going to bring forward and maybe put on another agenda to let us know kind of where that went and how to get our feet going with that, because the City Council was very energetic to jump on board with us and start identifying people and having some funding come in to help. As Mr. Amico had talked about earlier, so we're looking forward to that. So Mrs. Dunn, whenever you're ready to bring that forward, when you can find it. And I think that's it. We had a very productive meeting.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Redistricting Ad Hoc Subcommittee, Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, thank you. We did meet a couple of weeks ago and had a terrific meeting. AJ Gruby is now handling our technology piece, and he's doing a great job. As is everyone else on the subcommittee. We're in the process now of putting some plans together that will be before the school committee, I think, sometime in the near future. We do have another meeting scheduled for April 27. We're probably going to have a few more meetings before we're prepared to present to the school committee, but the hope is that right at the beginning of the 22-23 school year that we'll be able to have a presentation.
That's terrific. Thank you for your work on that, Mr. Hockman. Thank you for everyone's work on the subcommittees. Those were some good reports. Okay, our next meeting is 2 weeks from today, Tuesday, April 26th. And prior to that, we have our budget meeting starting at 6 p.m. that same day. So items for the next agenda will be handled in the regular course of business, and thank you, everyone, for a good meeting. Motion to adjourn, all in favor? So moved.